January 3rd, 2226, 1:07 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 18 miles off the northern coast of Venezuela, the Caribbean Sea churns beneath a formation of helicopters. No navigation lights, no transponders. Invisible to civilian radar, ghosts skimming 30 feet above the water at 140 knots. Radio chatter. Phantom 1-1, 2 minutes to coast. Copy. Switchblades are hot. Stand by for SID. Inside the lead aircraft, operators from the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta sit in absolute silence. Weapons loaded. Night vision devices humming softly in the dark. They've rehearsed this mission for months. Every room, every corridor, every contingency. But rehearsals don't account for chaos. 150 miles to the east, aboard the USS Iwo Jima, a joint operations center tracks the mission in real time. Screens glow with thermal signatures, satellite imagery, drone feeds. In Washington, President Donald Trump watches from the Situation Room. 1:09 a.m. The first bomb strikes Fort Tiuna. The objective is singular: extract one man, a head of state, a wanted narco-trafficker, the first foreign leader to be captured by American Special Operations Forces in the 21st century, Nicolás Maduro. This is the 4-hour raid. How Delta Force extracted Maduro. To understand how a sitting president ends up in American custody, you have to understand how Venezuela became a fortress, and how that fortress was built on sand. Venezuela, home to the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, 300 billion barrels. For decades, that wealth propped up a socialist state under Hugo Chavez, and later his successor, Nicolás Maduro, a former bus driver turned union leader turned autocrat. But oil wealth masks structural rot. By 2015, Venezuela's economy was in free fall. Hyperinflation, food shortages, a healthcare system on life support. Maduro's answer was simple: tighten the grip. In 2018, he won a second term in an election, widely condemned as fraudulent. The opposition, and much of the international community, rejected the results. The United States did not recognize Maduro's government. Sanctions followed, first on individuals, then on the oil sector, Venezuela's economic lifeline. By 2020, the U.S. Department of Justice went further. Maduro was indicted on narco-terrorism charges. The allegation: he conspired with the FARC, a Colombian guerrilla group, to flood the United States with cocaine. The DEA offered a $15 million reward for his capture, but bounties don't topple regimes. Maduro dug in, surrounded by Cuban intelligence advisors, protected by elite military units, insulated by a surveillance state that monitored dissent with ruthless efficiency. He became untouchable, or so he believed. By 2024, after another disputed election, international pressure reached a breaking point. Donald Trump, newly inaugurated for his second term, signaled a shift. Diplomacy had failed. Economic pressure had failed. What remained was direct action. In the weeks before Christmas 2025, U.S. military assets began to move. F-35 stealth fighters deployed to Puerto Rico. The amphibious assault ship USS Iwo Jima and her escorts positioned off Venezuela's coast. To outside observers, it looked like a show of force. It wasn't. Behind the naval armada was something far more dangerous: a CIA penetration team. Inserted quietly in August 2025, this small unit had one mission: map Maduro's life. Where he slept, where he ate, who guarded him, when he moved, and why. For 4 months, the CIA assembled a pattern-of-life dossier so detailed operators could predict his next breath. And then, on December 27th, President Trump made a phone call. The conversation was brief. Trump offered Maduro a choice: step down voluntarily, leave Venezuela with dignity, or be removed by force. Maduro hesitated. According to White House sources, he came close to accepting. But in the end, he refused. That refusal sealed his fate. The operation, codenamed Absolute Resolve, had been authorized weeks earlier. Now, there was no turning back. On December 28th, final approval was given. Delta Force operators already forward deployed began mission-specific rehearsals. A scale model of Maduro's compound was constructed at an undisclosed location. Teams practiced breaching techniques, room-clearing drills, extraction under fire. They simulated every variable: locked doors, armed guards, reinforced safe rooms. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, known as the Night Stalkers, ran flight profiles. Ingress routes calculated down to the second. Contingency plans for mechanical failure, enemy fire, civilian interference. Meanwhile, cyber warfare specialists at U.S. Cyber Command prepared to sever Caracas from the world. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern on January 2nd, President Trump gave the final execute order, Operation Absolute. Resolve was live. To extract a head of state from the capital of a sovereign nation requires more than courage. It requires total information dominance. And in 2026, that means space, spectrum, and silicon. For weeks, National Reconnaissance Office satellites mapped Caracas with synthetic aperture radar and electro-optical sensors. Every building, every military installation, every potential threat. This data fed into predictive algorithms that identified optimal strike windows based on weather, troop movements, and Maduro's schedule. High-altitude drones, Reapers, and Global Hawks circled at 50,000 feet, feeding real-time video to planners. Lower-tier assets provided signals intelligence, phone intercepts, radio chatter, encrypted communications. Maduro's security apparatus was robust. Cuban-trained counterintelligence, Russian-supplied electronic warfare systems, Chinese surveillance technology. But it was a fortress designed to suppress internal dissent, not to repel a synchronized military operation by the most technologically advanced force on Earth. Consider the asymmetry. Venezuela's air defense network relied on aging S-300 systems and short-range missiles. Effective against conventional aircraft, useless against stealth fighters. The Venezuelan military had early warning radar, but no integrated battle management system capable of coordinating a layered defense in real time. Against this, the United States deployed F-22 Raptors, low observable to radar, escorting EA-18 Growlers that could jam or spoof any remaining sensors. F-35s provided close air support. B-1B Lancer bombers carried bunker-busting munitions. E-2 Hawkeyes managed the airspace like a chessboard, but the coup de grace was cyber. At 12:58 a.m., U.S. Cyber Command executed a coordinated attack on Caracas's electrical grid. Power to key military installations went dark. Communications nodes failed. Backup generators kicked in, but only for critical infrastructure. The city, for all intents and purposes, was blind. Trump later described it as a certain expertise that we have, and then the helicopters crossed the coast. At 1:07 a.m. Eastern, the assault package crossed into Venezuelan airspace. MH-60M Black Hawks and MH-6 Little Birds flying nap of the earth, so low their skids nearly touched the jungle canopy. Radio. Phantom flight, feet dry, 30 seconds to phase line red. The lead element, Delta Force, America's Tier 1 counterterrorism unit. Based at Fort Bragg, Delta operators are recruited from across the Army's Special Operations community. The selection process is brutal, the training endless. Their specialty, high-risk direct action against high-value targets. Their target, a fortified compound in the Fuerte Tiuna military complex, where Maduro was confirmed by CIA ground assets. Reinforced concrete walls, armed sentries, and according to intelligence, a steel-reinforced panic room. At 1:09 a.m., the first bombs fell. B-1 Lancers struck command and control nodes across Caracas. Precision-guided munitions hit ammunition depots, communications towers, radar installations. The explosions lit the sky. These were not attempts to kill Maduro. They were suppression, shock and awe designed to paralyze Venezuela's ability to respond. Every officer scrambling for a phone, every unit awaiting orders that would never come. In the confusion, the helicopters descended. Delta operators fast-roped into the compound perimeter. Suppressed weapons, thermal optics, laser designators. They moved with inhuman precision. Each man a node in a distributed network, every action synchronized. Breaching charges detonated on reinforced doors. Flashbangs disoriented guards. Within 90 seconds, Delta had penetrated the inner compound. Maduro, according to General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was taken completely by surprise. He attempted to reach his safe room. He didn't make it. Within minutes, Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were in American custody. Flex-cuffed, hooded, loaded onto an MH-60. But the mission wasn't over. As the helicopters lifted off, Venezuelan forces, now aware of the incursion, opened fire. Anti-aircraft guns, small arms. One Black Hawk took hits but remained operational. Night Stalker pilots returned fire with door-mounted miniguns, suppressing ground threats as the formation climbed and turned east back toward the sea. Radio. Phantom 1-1. Precious cargo secure. RTB. At 3:29 a.m. Eastern, the helicopters crossed back into international waters. 4 hours after it began, Operation Absolute Resolve was complete. By Saturday afternoon, Nicolás Maduro arrived in New York aboard a DEA aircraft. He was processed at an undisclosed facility in Manhattan and transferred to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, the same facility that once held cartel kingpins in terror. Suspects. He now faces federal charges: narco-terrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, weapons offenses. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in an American prison. But the operation raises profound questions. President Trump announced the United States would run Venezuela for an unspecified period, a statement that alarmed allies and adversaries alike. Colombia and Brazil expressed concern. Russia called it an act of armed aggression. China stayed silent. Within Venezuela, chaos. The military, decapitated, fractured into factions. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado emerged as a potential successor, but the power vacuum remains volatile. And then there's the oil. Venezuela's reserves, long inaccessible due to sanctions and mismanagement, are now a geopolitical prize. If a stable, pro-Western government emerges, global energy markets could shift dramatically. If it collapses into civil war, the humanitarian crisis will dwarf Syria. From a purely tactical perspective, Operation Absolute Resolve was a masterclass: intelligence preparation, technological overmatch, surgical execution, zero American fatalities. But tactics are not strategy, and strategy is not policy. The United States has now done what it hasn't done since Panama in 1989: remove a foreign leader by force. The precedent is set, the implications unwritten. For Nicolás Maduro, the fortress has fallen, the iron grip broken. For Venezuela and the world, the next chapter is just beginning. Operation Absolute Resolve resulted in 0 American combat deaths. Several U.S. personnel were injured. Venezuelan casualty figures remain unconfirmed. Nicolás Maduro awaits trial in New York. The fate of Venezuela remains uncertain. This is Kaiser Military. Stay informed, stay critical,